Hey everyone, I hope that you are having a great day. I am teaching this week's topic and we are just going to jump right in. So I hope that you are watching this video prepared to maybe learn something or just be looking for a takeaway for how you're able to apply this week's lesson into the coming weeks of the challenge. So you're doing all the things, right? You're nailing your macros, you are crushing it at the gym or at least going to the gym. You are going to bed at a decent hour, trying to get a good amount of sleep, but the scale is not budging. Super frustrating. We've all been there. Some of you might currently be there. And there's normally one or two things that's probably happening if this sounds familiar to you. Either one, you're inaccurately logging, meaning that you might not be weighing and measuring everything. A few calories here and there that you're off, if you're just estimating things, can really, by the end of the day, add up to a couple hundred calories, which then bumps us out of a deficit. So that could be it. Or it's probably stress. Okay, so today I'm going to be teaching on stress. And before I could come to you and teach you this video or this lesson, I actually had to first apply it to myself. If you're not having a stressful life, or if you don't think that you're ever going to encounter stress, then I guess then you can go ahead and stop watching right now. But for myself, and I'm sure for all of you, stress is real, y'all. Like, it has been a crazy, stressful week. There's just been a lot going on. It's that time of year where kids are here, there, and everywhere. And I mean, you all get it. We all have stressful lives, okay? And there's some times where my stress is super high, and then there's some times where my stress is pretty manageable. This week just happened to be one that it was pretty high. And like I said, I think I first had to teach myself this lesson before I could come to you. And so God was like, here, let me remind you what it's like to try to be counting and tracking your macros and be under stress. So I totally get it. And I empathize with you and sympathize with you because I'm right there in this journey and in this struggle of this week's topic. Okay, so we just need to learn a little bit more about it. And we need to understand the impact that it has on us, because we know what stress can do to relationships. We know what stress can do to our jobs. We know what stress can do to our performance. But have you really stopped and thought about what stress can do to your weight loss journey or to your bulking muscle gaining journey? So stress, the definition of stress is experiences either emotionally or psychologically challenging. Stressors can be acute or chronic and can vary in degree. Acute stress, for example, is like having a favorite pair of socks that you have to wear on deadlift day and you're not able to find them. Or getting stuck in traffic on your way to work. Chronic stress is more like the loss of a loved one or the end of a relationship, or maybe you've lived through a natural disaster. Both acute and chronic stress impact our brain functions, okay? To get really nerdy for a second, it affects the prefrontal cortex, and bodily functions are altered with the levels of cortisol that are released into our body. This disruption will either slowly or completely sometimes stall progress in our weight loss or strength muscle gain cycle. And that's really frustrating. And I've definitely been there. I was under an immense amount of stress a few years ago, and in the course of about 6 weeks, was able to gain 15 pounds. And it really just felt like it happened overnight. My eating had not changed. I was tracking and counting my macros just like I am right now. But man, that weight, it just felt like it came on overnight. And it may have even been less than 6 weeks because I felt like it was in a 1 month time period. But anyways, that was just a little backstory about how I know that this is real, okay? Like, I live it. So I want to give you guys a couple of examples so you can take those nerdy words that I just told you about the front of your brain and cortisol and truly be able to understand them. So have you ever made a decision and then as soon as you made that decision, immediately thought, you idiot? Why do you always self-sabotage? Well, I don't really want any of you to be calling yourselves an idiot. I think we've all been there. So we are on our way to a party, okay? And we know that we're going to be tempted with unhealthy snacks that go against our goal, and we don't want to stall our progress. So we stop and we get a healthy snack and we eat it before we get to the party. So that way when we get there and we're tempted with all of the sweet, salty treats, we're able to know that we've already eaten and we're able to say no. So you go in with this game plan and you have the right mindset and you are determined in your goal, only to be 6 bites into a cookie and you're like, what the heck? I didn't even realize I was eating this thing. Like, why am I here once again? Like, why do you always self-sabotage? Unfortunately, when we are under so much stress, our brain is actually unable to make those rational decisions. You know, so we went in and we knew what we were going to do and we had our goal in mind and we were focused and we were determined. And then all of a sudden, like I said, before you even remembered making the decision to say yes to the cookie, you were already eating it. So when we are under stress, the prefrontal, the cortex of our brain, which is the front part of our brain, is super, super sensitive, okay? It's so sensitive to stress. And so our brain, it alerts stress, stress, stress. And it's like all of, you know, like when something is about to explode in a factory, like all the bells and whistles and red lights are going off. Like that's what happens in the front of our brain when we experience stress. So our brain's like, oh no, something bad is about to happen to us. I need to flip on autopilot. And so that's exactly what happens. Our brain flips on that autopilot feature, and the part of our brain that normally helps us make goals and helps us make cognitive decisions based upon those goals of what is going to go against a goal or not, all of a sudden that goes off when the autopilot comes on. And is what happens is we default back to easy, okay? And so before you know it, it just went right back. Oh my gosh, stress, stress, stress. Old habit kicks up because that's immediately what our brain remembers, and you eat the cookie. So that really stinks, and I know we've all been there, and you maybe haven't ever thought about it like that before. When the brain is under stress, it shifts. It starts turning off those light switches, and it starts borrowing power sources from other parts of our brain. It needs to provide that area of our brain as much energy as possible, and it completely wipes away the ability for us to be able to make conscious decisions. So this is really unfortunate because our brain doesn't discriminate, okay? And so think of an addict, a drug addict, an alcoholic, you know, addicts of all degree. If our brain, if it goes into autopilot in stress and we default back to previous habits, that's unfortunately how addicts find themselves back into the same lifestyle again. And it's not because they want to be there. It's not because they haven't done all the things to get away from it. It's because that's how our brains work, okay? Like our brains are so much smarter than we even realize, because while we sometimes sabotage ourselves, our brain knows how to keep our body functioning. Like our brain is in control of everything. And so if it feels danger, it's thinking, well, Kim doesn't know how to protect me anymore, so I need to start flipping these switches, and I need to start taking care of myself. And I remember that previously, this is what I've done. And so if I've done that previously, it must be okay and the right thing to do now. And unfortunately, that's how me, as a food addict, I find myself knee deep into a bowl of ice cream before I even realize that I'm experiencing stress. You know, like I might think I'm under stress, but I don't realize to which degree I am. And it probably really wouldn't be ice cream. I'm not a huge ice cream fan. So I've talked about it a little bit already, referenced it, but let's talk about cortisol. It is our body's primary stress hormone, okay? When we experience stress, our brain cues cortisol. Then that increases our heart rate and our energy level because our body's like, danger, danger, danger. Like, you must run, okay? Like, something's chasing you. So now I'm going to give you a big burst of energy so that way you have the opportunity to run away. So it puts our body into the fight or flight mode, okay? But unfortunately, when we're in this super stressed out state, going for a run to burn off this extra energy is the very last thing that we're thinking of. I know at least I am for the most part, okay? So then, unfortunately, we have this big dump into our bodies and it's not being used. So then, again, cue our brain because, once again, it's smarter than we are. It's thinking, oh no, well, she's not using this energy and I'm afraid that maybe in a couple days, she's gonna need more energy, and if she's not using this, then I need to hurry up and I need to scoop it back up and I need to put it into my savings account so that way I'm able to do this again if she's being chased by a bear. So our body then cues insulin, okay? And the insulin then turns that cortisol into fat to be stored so that way later on our body can tap into the fat for more energy source. Because remember, our body has cued stress. Well, our mind doesn't really know if we're stressed because the world is coming to an end and Armageddon is taking place, or if we're stressed because we spilled the milk. So our body fights it knows how to fight, right? Like it is ready for battle. And it just pulls out the big guns, you know? So it's dumping all of this stuff into our body. And so before we know it, it's giving us this extra energy. Well, we didn't use it fast enough. So then it takes that energy and it takes the insulin and it turns that energy back into fat. So before we know it, we had this opportunity to have a burst and we now feel like blah. It also influences the foods that we eat, okay? It tells our body to crave high fat, high sugar foods because what those do is they create an immediate release of dopamine, which dopamine makes us feel better for just a little bit. And so again, our body knows what it needs. And so it's like, eat this sugary, salty food because it's going to release dopamine into our body and it's going to feel better for a little bit. But unfortunately, that totally goes against our plan. But in that fight and flight mode, we are not able to have reasoning with ourselves and we are eating the foods that make us feel good, which is why people have emotional eating. They eat out of emotions, even if they don't want to, and even if they're trying to break that habit, because first off, that's what their body is telling them they need. They need that quick dose of dopamine. And also, we know that it reverts back to old habits. So if our old habit has always been to stress eat, that's immediately what our body is going to do. Cortisol causes our bodies to store fat because remember, it increases our energy. We were already gone over that. I'm sorry, I got a little out of sorts. So you can see in a high stress season, it is going to be next to impossible to be on a weight loss journey. Not because you aren't determined enough, or not because you're not strong-willed enough, or not because you don't really have the desire. It's because our body is choosing to protect itself, okay? The same also goes for when you're trying to bulk or when you're trying to gain muscle. Cortisol causes the muscles to take longer to repair. And when we're trying to build muscle, our muscle fibers have to break and repair in order to get bigger. Well, it slows that process down, okay? It also allows our immunity to drop, so we potentially have the likelihood of getting sick more. So that's going to keep us out of the gym. It's going to keep us feeling fatigued even if we do go to the gym. Cortisol also inhibits protein synthesis, which must occur for muscle gain. Like, it almost completely shuts it down. And so it's going to be really hard for us to have a successful bulking cycle if we are under an immense amount of stress. Plus, if you're struggling to gain weight, if you're a hard gainer, it's dumping so much of that energy and increasing our metabolism that if you're a hard gainer, you're going to go the opposite direction, and you're actually going to lose weight instead of gain weight. And I know people that gain weight under stress find that really hard to understand, but it is true. And man, like, people can get underweight really quickly if their body is just like dumping all of this extra energy and they're kind of just feeling frazzled all of the time, okay? So it's a tough topic, huh? Like, Kim's a Debbie Downer. I just told you that if you're stressed out, you're never going to lose weight, and we're all stressed all the time. So am I stuck in this body for forever? And this just stressed me out. Like, this lesson is stressing me out, right? So unfortunately, we're always going to have stress, always. And some seasons of our life are going to have more stress than others. And so that's what we're focusing on. We've taken the time to make our goals, and we have put forth a plan of how to have those goals happen. And when you are not in a stressful season of your life, it is critically important to be doing those daily habits. So that way, when you hit a chronic stress, your mind already knows, when I shift into autopilot, I'm going to continue on to those daily habits, because it's about a routine, right? It's about self-preservation, and your mind is like, okay, she no longer knows how to take care of herself. She doesn't remember what she needs to be doing. So I'm going to just continue doing what I've been trained to do. So when you are in seasons of your life where you find yourself to be less stressed, because we're always going to have stress, right? But if you find yourself to be in a season where you're less stressed, it is so vitally important to focus on your daily habits, focus on a routine. Also, I talked a little bit how it lowers our immunity, right? And so we have more of a likelihood to be getting sick. We have more of a likelihood to be eating foods that might not have the nutrients that our body needs. And so much of our foods, if we are short in our nutrients, are also going to affect our mood. If we're low in iron, if we're low in vitamin D, like if we have deficiencies within our body, then it's going to be really hard to break out of those stressful seasons. So it's also important that you're making sure that your diet is full of nutrient-rich foods, and that you are taking daily supplements to ensure that you are not going to be deficient in something, okay? So just a good multivitamin. If you're a woman, I really encourage vitamin D. Most all women are vitamin D deficient. Also, let's talk about sleep for a second, okay? I know that everybody loves sleep, but unfortunately, when you're stressed out, it's hard to go to sleep, it's hard to stay asleep, all of that. But we have got to do what we can to rearrange our day, to cut out caffeine some if we need to. Take a magnesium supplement at night. It's supposed to help with muscle cramps. It might also help you stay asleep longer. Do whatever you have to do. Look up natural sleep remedies, so that way you are sure to get a good amount of sleep, because sleep is our reset button. That's the time that our body is going to use, and it's going to self-soothe, and it's going to go through, and it's going to figure out what light switches need turned on and off. And so if we're getting a full night's sleep and our body is able to do what our body does best, take care of itself, then we're going to be out of that season a lot faster. And we're also going to be less likely to go into it if we're really well rested. And then this last tip is really important, and it does not apply to everyone. But if you've done all these things and you find yourself in chronic stress and you've been there for like a really long time, or if you see that you're in this cycle that like every 3 or 4 months you're falling back into this chronic stress and you're just so desperately in need for help, I am encouraging you to reach out to your doctor. Sometimes there is a chemical imbalance in our brains. Like I have one, okay, and I have got to take anxiety medicine. I am not a medicine pusher. I have done all the things besides medicine, but I truly know I have a chemical imbalance that causes me to have pretty severe anxiety. And if I am not taking those things that the doctor has had me take, and some of them are natural and some of them are a prescription, then unfortunately I'm not able to climb out of this hole, even if I'm doing all of these things. And so it's never a bad thing to have to ask your doctor for help when it comes to anxiety and depression. And if it's something that you're struggling with, I highly encourage you to reach out to your doctor. If you need someone to go to, let me know. I'll gladly give you some references for that. But I just want to encourage all of you that life is stressful, right? Like there's always going to be something to worry about. There's always going to be something to stress over, but we have to do what we can do in the seasons of our life when things might be a little bit easier to help prepare our bodies for how to handle something when it comes in the future. Because we know it's like a roller coaster ride, right? Like life is going to have all of its ups. It's going to have all of its downs. Sometimes it has the backwards flips where you feel like you're going to get sick, okay? But we know ultimately that God is in control. And we know that he is journeying with us in this season. And that while it's overwhelming and it's stressful, he's right there beside us. And he's sent us disciples to help us journey through it. So I just want to encourage all of you guys that, first off, I'm proud of you for doing this journey. I'm proud of you for watching this video because it's pretty long. But I think it's such an important topic. It's one that we all struggle with. And like I said, I had to teach this lesson to myself first. And I just want to encourage you all to find a takeaway from it. Like, maybe you didn't know some of this. Maybe you didn't know that stress came from the front of our brains and that the hormones in our body greatly affect it. And so I just want to encourage you to take some notes, okay, from this video. Go back and rewatch it again if you need to. I know I talked fast and I dumped a lot of information, but I just want you to realize that eliminating stress in our life is a necessity if we want to be successful at this, okay? And I encourage you to journal. I encourage you to exercise, drink your water, do all of those things. But most importantly, I want to encourage you to pursue Jesus, give your stress over to him, have a couple people in your life that you share those stressful things with, so that way we can be praying for you and with you. And just in that, you're going to have so much success. If you're able to release stress and remove yourself and to know what your stressors are, all of this other stuff is going to take care of itself. So I hope that you have a great week. I can't wait to see how everyone is doing, and we will see you next time.